Now, in the morning of June 25th, 2009, about 1 o'clock that morning, he contacted his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, and told him that he was having a problem sleeping and he was dehydrated. So Murray came over, and Michael Jackson requested what he called milk, which was propofol, the thing we all know about. It's a sedative that's used for people that are going through surgery or people in chronic pain, not for insomnia. So Conrad Murray had given Jackson his propofol. And now Murray claims that he never left Jackson's side except for to use the restroom the next morning, and for 2 minutes he stepped back in and Jackson was having a problem breathing, so he performed CPR on him. Now, in reality, there's a 90-minute period of time that's unaccounted for prior to the 911 call that was made from Jackson's home. During that time, there were 3 phone calls made on Murray's phone, totaling 47 minutes. One of them was supposedly to Michael Jackson's personal physician, Arnie Klein, when he was asking for advice. One was apparently to a lawyer, and the other one might possibly have been to Conrad Murray's girlfriend, who claims herself that she heard Murray react when Michael Jackson's lifeless body was found. But 911 was called. Michael Jackson was unresponsive. They took him to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center and worked on him for another 2 hours. Now, Michael was already gone. He had been flatlined back at the home. So 2 hours later, if they revived him, it was not going to be a good thing. But he was pronounced dead 2 hours after the ambulance was called to the home. Now, in Jackson's bedroom were a laptop, a book, eyeglasses, several bottles of orange juice, and a closed jar of urine were surrounding the bed. Also found were condom catheters, and in the very bed that Jackson was found in was one of those blue plastic pads lined with cotton, usually used for urination issues. I'm not saying that that's the case. These are just the facts. What's interesting about Jackson's death is that Michael Jackson's fans, they could be the sanest people in real life. You know, you're talking about lawyers and people in their 40s and, just really successful business people. But when it comes to Michael Jackson, they fall to pieces. I mean, I've spoken to people, highly educated people that are broken down to tears because of this, basically pop star's death. And I'm not dismissing that. What people do in their grief is a very personal thing. I just find it interesting. And Michael Jackson fans are positively rabid, some of them. I mean, the coroner's office are still inundated with people that just do not believe that Michael Jackson is dead. I mean, people are creating phony videos showing Michael Jackson being, carted away out of the coroner's office. It's crazy what has happened since then. But we're in Holmby Hills right now, and behind me is a 17,000 square foot home that Michael Jackson was renting, and where Michael Jackson died on June 25th of 2009. The bedroom that Michael Jackson died in, apparently, is that one, the tall one at the very top. Behind me is another tour bus in front of Michael Jackson's house. Now, I've been in this business for about 15 years or so, and people always look down at us like we're ghouls, like we're doing something really awful, and now it's like become so mainstream, everyone's doing. There was very famous cell phone footage that somebody that was on a tour bus took of Michael being taken out of those gates. Now, there were Christmas wreaths on those gates back then, and they stayed there for several months after Michael Jackson died. He had been renting this house for $100,000 a month. Jermaine Jackson held a press conference announcing the details of Michael's death and him being picked up and worked over for 2 hours, and requested that the media leave his family alone to grieve in private. Then he invited 26,000 people to the Staples Center and put a big gold box in the middle of it for privacy. And the televised funeral held at Forest Lawn, Glendale, where he is entombed in the Great Mausoleum, which is the holy grail of cemeteries in Los Angeles. They say the entire bill for the funeral was about $900,000, including all the clothing, etc. Now, the weirdest thing about it, since Michael Jackson's death was ruled a homicide, and homicide doesn't necessarily mean murder. It just means that he didn't die at his own hands, that someone else may have had something to do with his death. And since Michael Jackson, it was 2 months before he was buried, and basically he was in a cooler at Forest Lawn. And since it was now ruled a drug death, they went back to Forest Lawn. A coroner's aide went to Forest Lawn, or the chief of operations for the county coroner went, and a Forest Lawn representative, and LaToya Jackson and a man that was with her went to Forest Lawn. They opened up Jackson's casket, and they had to remove his wig because he was bald, well, male pattern baldness, and he also had tattoos, eyes, and he had his hairline tattooed, so it didn't look like he was wearing a wig, and pink on his lips tattooed. But anyway, they were plucking hairs from Michael Jackson's head at this, with LaToya looking on. It's just a very weird, kind of ghoulish scene. So they could diagnose, or they could check the hair out and examine the hair for chemical content.